And I woke up the next day and I was just like, I feel really off. Like my equilibrium felt strange. I was throwing up. I had really severe anxiety. My heart was racing. Within that, stopped being able to walk, couldn't travel, really couldn't even like walk to my mailbox. And I stopped tracking symptoms and I started, hey, what if I just tracked wins? I don't have Lyme. Like I'm dealing with symptoms right now, but I'm not claiming this as part of me. It was only 5 years ago that I was laying in bed and just not doing anything. So I feel like unlocking the part of your mind that's holding you back and just like you don't have to live with how you are now. And that applies to gym life, that applies to like relationships. Like you can become anything that you want to be. You just have to put in the work in order to get there.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the True Form podcast. If you are enjoying this content, the conversations that I am bringing to you, then I would appreciate it if you could do one thing. Interact with this episode wherever you are listening or watching. Like, 5-star review, positive comment, subscribe, however you can interact. Even if you just copy the show link and send it to one friend or family member that you think would benefit from this conversation today, then do that. It really does help this podcast reach more people, which helps them find their true form and live a life that is true to them. Allie, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat with you.
Same here. I know I'm going to learn a lot from this chat, and I'm sure the audience is as well. Like, you're doing a lot at the moment. I'm excited to dive into what you're doing. Like, you've helped a brand go from 60 million to 100 million revenue. You've driven $1.3 million of sales on Amazon.
Monthly.
Monthly.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
Epic. And normally I'd start off with a question of what gets you up and drives you and what's your inspiration to get out of the bed and absolutely kill it. But for 8 years or so, I seen you were actually sick and bedridden, so you
Yeah.
couldn't get out of bed. So can you take us back to that point? First, why were you sick? And then what inspired you to get better and start doing what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So growing up, I was always a really healthy kid. Like I played volleyball year round competitively, was always active, good student. I feel like was always involved in a lot of different things. Never had any health issues. And a little bit of background, because I think it's relevant. I was a teacher. It's actually what I went to college for. I taught high school. So I was 22 and they were 18. I was teaching seniors. It was so crazy. So I did that for 4 years and was like, I don't like that there's a cap on what I can make here. Like, I loved the kids. There's just, a lot of politics and things that go along with it. So I quit my job and decided to backpack through Europe and move from Michigan to California once I got back from that trip. And so on this trip in the Swiss Alps is when I got sick and we were, like, tent camping. It was so beautiful. I forgot what the name of the city was, but it looked like a storybook. It was gorgeous. Um, and I woke up the next day and I was just like, I feel really off. Like, my equilibrium felt strange. I was throwing up. I had really severe anxiety. My heart was racing constantly. There were so many symptoms, and of course, I was, like, in my early 20s, so I was like, "Oh, it's just a virus, just traveling, like, I'm gonna be fine, I'm healthy," right? Like, I never really was sick, but I was there all summer, and it got worse and worse and worse to the point where I had to fly back to the US and immediately get hospitalized, get a bunch of testing done, 'cause it was like my symptoms would change every few hours, and every day I had no idea what I was gonna wake up and feel like. So one day I could have a severe migraine and, like, vision problems, and the next day I could have just, like, really crazy panic attacks. It was just really hard to figure out, and so got hospitalized. They didn't know what to do with me. They ran so many tests and just put me on a bunch of antibiotics and steroids, and it made me worse, actually. I felt absolutely horrible after that. But I'm very type A, and so I was planning to move to start grad school in San Francisco, like, a week after getting home from that trip, and I still went. I was like, "I'm gonna be sick no matter where I am," might as well just be sick and be traveling and kind of be starting this new part of my life. So, yeah, there's a whole like 10 years of story that I can kind of get into and summarize, but essentially it took me a lot of dozens of doctors, many, many years for people to figure out what was going on. And long story short, I ended up finding that it was Lyme, that I got bit by a tick when I was in Europe, and I vaguely remember, like, bug bites and things like that, but, I don't have, like, a strong memory of that happening there, so, yeah, it took me about 4 years to figure that out, and then just kind of explored a lot of functional medicine doctors after going the conventional route, and, yeah, within that, stopped being able to walk, couldn't travel, really couldn't even, like, walk to my mailbox, and was newly married at the time and couldn't like obviously we couldn't go on dates, we couldn't really do anything. So yeah, there's a whole lot of story in the middle of all of that, but that's kind of the summary of what I went through and then kind of got myself to the other side now where I feel absolutely amazing, which is great. So
What was the point that changed? Obviously, that that would have been quite hard to go through, just not physically, but mentally as well. Like, at what point did it start getting better? Like, did something actually happen, or did you find out some sort of treatment?
yeah, so I guess I tried a lot of protocols, I saw a lot of different doctors and they were all convinced that it was whatever they specialized in. So one of them was like, "Oh, it's definitely your adrenals," or "Oh, it's your gut microbiome." So I bounced around from doctor to doctor, but I actually never got better until I discovered what limbic system retraining is. Do you know? I'm sure you do.
Yeah, could you explain it though?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So essentially, you can create new neural pathways in your brain. And so I was having this like anxiety reaction to really everything, just because I was reacting to foods, to sounds, to crowds, to heat. It was like everything was a trigger for my little nervous system. And so I had to basically retrain my brain to not be triggered by, all of these things and not to sort of live in this like fear based mindset. So one of the things I usually share with people is, it was so bad for me that I was so reactive and all I was doing all day was tracking my symptoms. So it was like 10:02, like this happened. Is it because I ate something off of my safe food list? Is it because I didn't sleep enough? Is it because, someone's using a chemical and the person next to me is doing something, I was just always trying to figure out what the reason for it was, but I think that trained my brain to constantly be scanning for threat, right? I'm constantly like, "Ooh, I'm hyper vigilant to every tiny shift in my body," trying to, investigate and figure out what's going on. But I really truly believe that the turning point for me was learning about, your limbic system and your mindset and things like that are so important. And I stopped tracking symptoms and I started, hey, what if I just tracked wins? Right? Like, what if I just tracked the good things that are happening in these protocols and, I'm doing so much to try to heal and eating healthy and, trying to like I remember doing bed yoga at one point because I couldn't walk and I'm so used to being active that I was like, I'm gonna look up yoga I can do sitting in my bed. But anyway, so I switched to what good things are happening, what are the wins, what are the positives, and it was really difficult at first. I didn't feel like there was much that was positive, but I feel like, you kinda get used to it, and then you train this part of your brain called the reticular activating system, which is sort of like the filtering system for what you're looking for and noticing consciously. You train it to scan for good. And so I feel like that's something that a lot of us maybe we're used to looking for the negative or, maybe you have friends that are always complaining and then you kind of get into that, right? Like what, oh my gosh, work is so stressful. I'm so busy. But if you can just shift that little part of your mindset, I feel like even if you're not chronically ill, it can be very life changing.
100% agree. And that's very hard for people. On this podcast and with my clients, I'm always talking about trying to be more aware of things. Like, we are just set in autopilot. And if you're set in autopilot and you're surrounded by those negative, like always scanning for the negative or, things that are going to bring you down or, when you are sick, why did this happen? Instead of looking for the positives, Like once you can, like you said, once you flip that switch, it is quite amazing what it can actually do. So what did you actually do to start finding the positives in life and instead of the negatives?
Yeah, so I did a program called the Dynamic Neural Retraining System. It's called DNRS for short, but essentially it was like an hour practice that I did every day for 6 months. And a lot of it, there's kind of two parts of it. There was one part where you had to kind of push yourself to go into situations that would trigger you. And then you had this sort of like script that you would say to your body, which was things like, hey, like, I appreciate you, making me feel anxious to point out that there's a threat, but we're actually okay. Nothing's happening. We're safe. And we're going to create this new pathway when things like this happen, right? We were going to be calm. We're going to be whatever. Like you kind of like talk your body through, like, hey, stop. Like, let's not go down this path. We're going to write this new path and this is what it's going to be. Which sounds very basic, but I think having that, repetition and you're just saying like, "Hey, thank you, like, for watching out for me. I appreciate you," to your body, and then, "But this is our new programming, like, let me walk you through it." And the second part of it was actually visualization, and I know all of this sounds so like, "Oh, I could just do this right now for free at home," but I think one thing I struggled with was I was sick for so long that I didn't know how to picture myself better. I couldn't picture how good my life could be. I was just trying to get, like, well enough to make a meal. That's all I could think about, right? Like, to stand enough to make, like, a green smoothie or to make eggs or something. But I couldn't think beyond that, and I think that's actually really important, and I'm sure with personal training clients too, like, you hit that mental block where you're like, "Oh, I can't bench 2 plates." Like, you just kinda get in your head, and you have to almost, like, train your brain, like, "Okay, like, I have a spotter, I'm safe, like, it's okay, let's push," you know? But yeah, same with that was just, like, being able to visualize myself fully better, and not only that, but, like, what am I waking up next to? What's my house look like? What are all the sounds, the smells, the actual like emotions of it? How do I feel in a healthy and safe body? So I would spend, 30, 40 minutes doing these visualizations and like picturing myself lifting again, because it's really important to me. And I, of course, couldn't when I was not walking. Um, Picturing myself with, like, a really, like, supportive family, friends, all of these things that I wanted, and I felt really isolated during all of this, but I do think that our brains are very, very, very powerful, and it's like the words we say to ourselves, what that track is internally in your head, and being able to picture, even if you're not sick, like I said, picture, like, yourself accomplishing that goal or picture this, like, new PR that you're going to accomplish, at the gym or whatever it's important to you, like go through and visualize because like athletes do that all the time. They always picture themselves winning games and Olympians, right? Like how many times do they visualize themselves crossing that finish line and getting the medal? It's the same thing with everyday life.
Mm. Yeah, I always say to my clients, like, watch your language because the language they're using when they're in the session, like if we're talking about benching, like, oh, I can't bench that much. It's like, well, that's not the right words. Like, you can't bench it yet, or you will be able to bench it one day. Like, ins- and then, like, obviously changing the external changes the internal. Like, it's very hard
It
to
is.
understand what that internal dialogue is. And you tell yourself stories that are definitely holding you back and, yeah,
Mhm.
can bring you down some pretty bad way in a pretty bad way sometimes.
It's actually funny because I lived with a power lifter. He's a strongman competitor, and so I'm used to comparing myself to this man who's, like, 290 pounds and just, like I don't even remember. I think he can squat, like, 600 something and bench 4 something. And so he pushes me like I'm just a bro, right? Like, he's like, "Come on, like, 3 plates on squat, like, you can do that." And I'm like, wait a second, like, I should be able to do that, So it's kinda nice to be with someone who's just, like, delusionally better than you, and you're just like, "Okay, yeah, yeah, you're right, I can do that." But I do agree that it's important to, the way that you speak to yourself, I like what you said about even if you're like, "Oh, I'm excited to get there one day," that feels so different than like, "Ooh, I can't do this," right?
Mm, yep, because your brain just shuts it down straight away and it thinks you can't do that. So it just doesn't even think about how you could actually achieve whatever you're trying to do. So if you care about your health, wellness, and longevity, obviously you do, you're here listening to this podcast, you're going to eventually come across red light therapy. And there's a few things you need to know before you go and spend hundreds, even thousands of dollars on a red light therapy device. First, you need to do your own research. Don't just rely on a podcaster getting your information. So you need to go out and do your own research. But when you're doing your research, don't just put in red light therapy and skincare or recovery. You got to put in photobiomodulation and then skincare, photobiomodulation and then Alzheimer's or gut health or brain health, eyes. There's a bunch of research out there that's very exciting, and it really does blow your mind on how light affects your body. So even if you're not interested in red light therapy or want to purchase one, it's probably worth you going out and doing this research just so you understand how light affects your body. We all know that blue light is bad for you later on in the evenings, and understanding why that is going to help you make more informed decisions. Also, when you're looking for devices, make sure the red light therapy device goes through a full range of the infrared light. So a lot of the devices out there will just sit at a certain wavelength, where the LumaFlex products go through a full range, and you can actually control it. So if you're trying to do recovery or skincare, both are different wavelengths, and you can control it through your phone. So if I'm trying to do muscle recovery, I just control it through my phone. It selects the right wavelength and the duration. I put it on the muscle that needs recovery, and I go from there. If I want to do my face and get rid of those wrinkles, I can just do that. Different wavelengths affect the body in different ways. So when you are doing your research, I strongly recommend you check out the LumaFlex products. And when you're ready to purchase one, use the code TRUEFORM to get 10% off your first order. That is TRUEFORM at checkout for 10% off. Let's get back to the episode. That analogy, or lifting with a power lifter, you can see it online, and obviously social media, if you're in some sort of algorithm, you can see somebody lifting something heavy, but it isn't real when it's on your phone. But when you're in person and watch somebody lift that amount of weight, it just changes the way you perceive the weight when you do it. So for people trying to achieve some sort of health and fitness goal, it's good to go along to some sort of event, so you can see these people absolutely killing it. You're like, oh, it is possible. Like, you can see it with your eyes, and you can feel it. You can feel the emotions. You can feel the excitement. But you can do that with anything you're trying to do. Like, obviously, you said you did a course to help you get better, to help you visualize. I think that's a big thing people miss, because they just think, oh yeah, sounds easy, I'm going to do it for free, and I'm going to go along and do it by myself. But actually having somebody there helping you that's probably done it before or been through something similar gives you that sort of visual that, oh yeah, they've done it, so I can do it.
Right. Well, and actually one of the things, I guess, like the other pillar that I found really important in my healing was community. And again, doesn't seem like it's really relevant to the healing process, but I do think that it's important to have people that are in the same mindset as you. So like the gym analogy too, like lifting with someone who's always pushing himself to be stronger makes me push myself, right? If I was just doing that by myself, no way I would be trying to like level up as much. And I think it's that way with healing too. I joined a lot of, this was back like 10, 12 years ago, but I joined a lot of Facebook groups because at the time Facebook was still pretty popular. And, there were a lot of support groups there where people with Lyme were just sharing like, hey, I tried this treatment, or has anyone done ozone, or, kind of talking about what they were going through. And there's pros and cons. You can meet people who are of the mindset of like I got to the point where I was like, this isn't going to be my life. Like, I refuse to be sick the rest of my life. I have so much like to live for, and I want to be better for these 5 reasons, like here's my why of healing. But then you're going to also in life too run into the people who are just going to be stuck. And that's that victim mindset that I was talking about, where it's like, hey, like, feel bad for me. This is really awful. They're kind of just like wallowing in it and accepting that diagnosis as part of their identity. So I think with the language piece, like you said, I got to the point where I was like, I don't have Lyme. Like, I'm dealing with symptoms right now, but I'm not claiming this as part of me, because like energetically that feels wrong. Like, I don't want it, like I don't want this to be a part of my identity. So I stopped saying that I had Lyme. I just was like, yeah, I'm struggling with these, 4 symptoms right now, but we're gonna get better and we're gonna make it. So yeah, I think the language and the community are really 2 super, super important ways to heal alongside of whatever supplement protocol or whatever, medications and things that you're doing.
Mm. I I want to dive into what you're doing now, but let's just double click on that victim mindset for just a second. I, how did that up for you? Because I find that a lot. Again, you can use that in any sort of situation, health and fitness as well. When I have a consult for a client, they're like, "I'm just unfit. I am this," and they claim
Yeah, for
that
sure.
unhealthiness or whatever they're trying to do. They're claiming it as their identity, but trying to shift that mindset into, getting out of that victim mindset. And we tell ourselves stories all the time. It's very hard to catch. And that's why I'm asking this question. Like, how did you go from that victim mindset into that, oh, this isn't me. I'm not identifying as that? Because I think a lot of people struggle with that and can't actually see it.
For sure, yeah, and I think, honestly, just the awareness that I was doing it was a really big thing for me. So, I have a very dear, she was an energy healer that I was seeing. So, I lived in Monterey, California, which was absolutely beautiful, like, right on the ocean. I think we were a 2, 3-minute walk from the ocean, and of course, like, when I lived there, I couldn't even walk there. Like, I was so weak, and it was really a lot of rent was wasted for me to live there and not be able to enjoy it, but, so I started seeing an energy healer in Monterey, and I worked with her a lot on the mindset side of things, and so I think, she in the intake, she just let me talk for, like, an hour because I'm quite a yapper, and I felt very unheard in this sickness, and so she just kinda sat there, and she's like, "Tell me what's going on," and I, could go through everything, like, "Here's what I've tried. Here's, the labs I've gotten. Here are all my results." I walked into these appointments with, like, a 52-page summary of, like, page 3 is my diet, and I'm doing autoimmune paleo, and I eliminated these. Like, I had everything documented. But she's like, "You know what? Put that away. Like, just talk to me. Talk to me about what's going on." So I did, and I remember she just sat and listened. She might have asked me a couple follow-up questions here and there, but then at the end, she was like, I think I think you" she's actually the one that got me tested for Lyme. She was the first one, like, intuitively, just to be like, "Have you ever been tested for this?" It seems like that would be a really easy thing to eliminate or to figure out. So that was her first thought, and then she was like, "The second thing is you really like, you said these 5 things," and she had written down, like, "You claimed your diagnosis, you did," she had this whole list of the way I was speaking about my illness, and she was like, I think if you give me permission, I'd like to clear some of these beliefs that you have and replace them with new beliefs, right? Like, not, I feel like I'm never going to heal, and all my friends are on vacations and getting married, and I'm just like laying in bed, and how unfair." She's like, that can't be the programming in your head. So I'm a big believer in energy healing. I didn't ever used to be until I saw it in action and kind of experienced it firsthand, because it sounds very woo, and I'm pretty, like, science driven, research driven. But, having done it, and even just her saying, like, "Let's remove those beliefs from your brain and let's instill this, like, hey, I am on my way to healing. And this is, the new way that we're speaking to ourselves." I feel like it kind of all relates to that, the language and the energy. I do believe every emotion has a vibration and a frequency, and so I don't know if you've ever seen, like, um I keep saying emotional current scale because that's the scale I use, but there's an Abraham Hicks emotional scale, and so, like, the lowest vibration emotions are guilt, shame, depression, like, all the really kinda negative vibrations, and then all the way up to, like, joy, gratitude, radiance, and so I think, like, understanding where we're sitting any day on that emotional scale and sort of, like, the energy that we're putting out toward people, right? Because you don't wanna be around people that are, like, mopey and sad and depressed all the time, but I'm sure you've experienced where you meet someone who's just so magnetic, right? Their nervous system is probably really regulated, and they're living in some of those higher vibration emotions, and you're just like, "Wow, I can't wait to, like, be close to them and, like, spend time with them." So I did a lot of learning, right, that year. I learned about all of these energetic things. She did a lot of work on me with that. And then, like I said, the limbic system retraining also talked about mindset too. So I feel like there was one year where it was just like I didn't take any supplements. I literally just did this like deep internal work and, even like reworking my identity because I was so far away from the person that I knew myself to be. Like, what does that mean and what does that look like? And who can I become still, right? I'm not, it's always changing. It's never stuck, right? You can reinvent yourself as many times as you want. So,
Hmm. How long ago was that?
I would say that was maybe 5 years ago. It hasn't been a super, super long time, 5 or 6 years ago.
Hmm. Well, if you could go back 10 years, like what would you, I know it's a cliche question,
Yeah.
but what advice would you give yourself 10 years ago?
So I feel like I didn't believe in myself and my ability to heal for many years. Like you were saying, I was doing the thing where I was like, well, 120 times I've stood up and my problem was actually my heart rate was very unregulated. So I had something called hyperadrenergic POTS. So every time I stood, my resting heart rate's like 55. And when I stood, it would be like 180 until I sat down. You can imagine, like, stairs and walking around, it would get even higher than that. And so that's what prevented me from moving around because I just my blood pressure wasn't regulated, my heart rate wasn't regulated, my body was just kinda like my nervous system didn't know what to do. So, yeah, I would say because that had happened so many times, I just accepted it. I was like, "Okay, well, this is just
Mm.
what's happening, and that's how my life is gonna be." And I sorta just was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna have to learn to adapt and live with it." When I started doing the brain retraining, they really push you to challenge yourself, not only your beliefs, but also triggers, right? So I was trying to avoid every trigger. I was trying to like cut every food out that ever bothered me, even if it was unrelated to my symptom. I would cut like heat. I couldn't go in heat, right? So I just stopped going outside. I stopped standing. It was like I kind of eliminated every possible
Hmm.
stressor, even small ones, right? Like, so instead of, hey, how can I deal with this and push past it? So, I mean, the thing that really helped me, I think, was that I had to challenge myself in that way. And so, like, to get back to lifting, for example, it was probably a full year of me. One day I would just put on my tennis shoes and I wouldn't leave my apartment. It was just like, put on your gym clothes, lace up your tennis shoes, and like, ooh, that's a lot for me today. Okay. Now, tomorrow, like, what can I do? Can I take one step out the door? Okay, great. Like, I always was just pushing myself. How can I go a little bit further? So there was a few weeks where I just barely made it to my apartment gym. I would just walk there and then I would lay down because my heart rate was like 185 and I would just lay at the door. Of course, no one was ever there. It's a little tiny apartment gym, but um yeah, and then I remember the first thing that I did once I got in there finally was I did like probably 20 seconds on an elliptical. And I was like, okay. Um but I think just having that mindset where you don't give up and across the board, right? Like, I refused to have that be my life. I was like, if I want to get better, I'm going to have to just go one step further every day. And there's no negotiating. It's not like I took like weeks off and was like, oh, I'm tired or whatever. Like, no matter what, I got up, I put the shoes on, and I showed up. And then, like, now, this morning, I lifted for like 2 hours. I did leg day, I did stairs, I do like incline tread, and like that's just normal to me now. But like it was only 5 years ago that I was laying in bed and just not doing anything. So I feel like unlocking the part of your mind that's holding you back and just like you don't have to live with how you are now. And that applies to gym life, that applies to like relationships. Like you can become anything that you want to be. You just have to put in the work in order to get there, right? And you have to show up and you have to be consistent. But as long as you're willing to do that, like for me, for the gym, like consistency is the most important thing. Like you're going to show up and you're going to keep working and you're going to push yourself. It's more important than being the strongest or, like, being able to lift the heaviest is just, are you willing to show up every day and put the work in? And that's kind of where I had to get to. But seems like it worked, so
Yeah,
that's great.
definitely. And I think that's a great transition into what you're doing now. I'd love to hear how you went from teaching to what you're doing now, helping brands, health and wellness brands, practitioners increase their revenue to millions of dollars.
Well, it's a crazy story, Jack. Let me tell you. Trina was the name of my energy healer, and she referred me to this man named Dr. J. Davidson. He was a Lyme doctor. Um, and, got tested, and that was all positive. So I ended up working with him as my doctor. I worked with one of his other practitioners, but he had a retreat in San Diego, maybe like 6 months into my healing. And my husband at the time was like, we have to go. It's only like a 6-hour drive. It'd be good for you to spend more time with them in person and, just kind of get like more personal one-on-one time. Because, at this time I was either in a wheelchair or my husband was carrying me to the car. I
All right.
wasn't, I was not even like able to walk to our car. And so I went on this retreat, which was hilarious because it was like rooftop yoga and like beach power walks. And I was like, I'm just gonna be inside. Like, I'll just hang out here. Um, but what happened and how I got into the industry I'm in now is I overheard him talking to one of his employees about how they needed help writing blogs. And I had just graduated from grad school. I did end up graduating, even though I was going through all of this, with a master's in writing. So I was like, wait a second, I can help you with that. So I went up to him and was like, hey, like, I want an interview for this whatever position you're creating. And I feel like he looked at his wife and was like, she's got to be kidding because look at her. Like, she looks awful. She's not going to be able to, help us with anything. But he's like, yeah, when you get home, just send me your resume and everything. And I was like, no, like, I want an interview tomorrow, like at the retreat. I want to talk to you about it. And he's like, okay. So my husband and I went to the Airbnb where we were staying. I did this like 23-point site audit for his website. I came with like all of these like plans and papers and like, not only can I do blogs, but here's like 6 other things I think I can help with. And so I talked to 2 people the next day and they hired me right on the spot. And they were like, okay, well, you're our marketing person now. I had never studied marketing. I mean, writing obviously is a big part of marketing. And the only functional medicine background I had was just like researching to get myself better. So I did that with him for like 3 years. I just kind of worked my way up. I ended up doing high ticket sales for him and selling these like $18,000 health packages, which was the same thing I was, working with someone on his team with. So, um, and then he started a really big supplement company and brought me over as head of content. And so that one was Cellcore Biosciences. I don't know if you guys have that in Australia, but it's a really popular one here. And then from there, I just kind of transitioned to a couple years later to a probiotic company called Microbiome Labs and was their head of marketing and events. So I kind of just like scrappy, like worked my way up into this industry that I really had no background in at all. Just kind of taught myself as I went. But yeah, after that, I left. There's some acquisitions and mergers that happened. I left and I started my own business and just started working with practitioners. Both of those supplement companies sold to doctors. So I made a lot of contacts in working with them with different practitioners in the functional medicine space. And so I've been doing that since 2019 with my own business. And I love it. I have like 8 people on my team. I have a little agency. They're absolutely amazing humans. So I'm very, very blessed to be able to work with the people on my team. But yeah, so it's good. It's good
Yeah,
having my own thing now.
that's
Yeah.
epic. So
Mhm.
before we hit record, you were telling me that today you had a back-to-back calls with clients. What
Mhm.
are you actually helping your clients with?
Yeah, so I work with mostly kind of large supplement companies and then clinics. So I would say most clinics are probably between like 2 and 10 million annually. They're probably have a couple practitioners on staff and they're looking to scale. A lot of what I do is anything content related. So a lot of times we'll do all of the email marketing, automations, lead generation. I do affiliates and partnership management. So I get on calls and I try to charm people into like promoting stuff for us, which is really fun. Yeah, so really anything that has to do with making you money. Like one of my clients, I just helped him formulate a whole brain health suite. So he's an Alzheimer's doctor, was trained at Harvard, double board certified, and we just launched 3 brain health products for him, so I can kinda dabble in, like, the supplement and private label side of things. But yeah, anything to do with, marketing, scaling courses, like I help people kinda outline and build courses and memberships and website things and yeah, anything they need that's digital brand.
As I said when we at the start, I'm going to learn a lot from this, and I know there's a lot of practitioners that have a practice that are trying to transition into or just supplement their income, so they're not just back-to-back clients 5 or 6 days a
Yeah.
week for the
Mhm.
rest of their life. So,
Yeah.
and like, first of all, like a lot of them are creative and they're excited to do things. It's like, oh, I want to start a podcast. No, I want to write a book. I'm going to do a digital. I'm going to do
Yeah.
this. I'm going to start a
Right.
supplement company. Like, when somebody comes to you and they've got all these ideas and they want to start supplementing their income so they're not like just back-to-back clients, like what's the
Yeah.
conversation look like and what's the advice?
So I think it really depends on the person. I'm such like an empath and such a like people person, so I feel like in just having a conversation with them, I can usually pull out of them what they actually really like doing. Some people hate being on video, and so like creating a course or doing anything on social, maybe they can get there, but that's not their strength right then. So I have something that I developed. It's called the Practitioner Archetype, but I have them usually take that and it's the Enneagram test? Okay. Oh, you should take it. I'm curious what you are. But it's just a personality test. You should write it down. But it's a personality test that there's 9 results, and so if people are familiar with the Enneagram, I always say this is like the Enneagram for doctors, essentially. Like, what's important to you? What are your motivations for what you do? What are your fears? What are your core values? So they take this quiz and they might get a result like, "I'm a rebel disruptor." So I like to do myth busting and I like to be like this truth teller and kinda go against the grain of like, "Hey, this is the way that we've always done things in this practice. This is what I think is better?" So there's all these different personalities, and I think that kinda helps determine what their strengths are. So there's one that's called the Phoenix, which if I were a practitioner, I'd probably be that one, but it's like you have your own healing story, right? You healed yourself,
Mm.
and now you're kinda helping others kinda go through that same path. So usually I'll have them take that, but I will say, like, if I had to give a standard answer, I would just tell people record a mini course of some kind that's a digital product because 'cause you're not gonna have any, like, margin or profit and loss that you're gonna have to worry about. It's all digital. And then I would do a pay per lead with affiliate. So hopefully you have some people in the space that have a good email list and you can pay them like $2 a lead to have people register for your webinar and then, do educational webinars and sell your digital course, right? You're going to make money. You're going to have to pay a little bit out to get those leads on your email list, but the lifetime value of a person on your email list is gonna far outweigh the $2 that you paid to get them on there for acquisition, so that'd be, like, my standard answer, but of course, it depends on the person and their strengths and what they wanna do.
So many follow-up questions. So
I
with
could
the
talk
Phoenix,
all day.
with the Phoenix, a lot of people have been through something and they do want to share their story,
Mhm.
but sometimes it's like, oh, but so many other people have been through it, and my story is pretty much the same. Like, but I do believe that the more people go through things and the more they share, it's just going to help more and more people because people connect with different people in different ways. So, like, if like for yourself, like, how can you get people to start sharing their story of what they've been through, and like, is it worth monetizing or should they share it? Like, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of nuance with the Phoenix because I feel like there's a line where you have to be pretty emotionally regulated and sort of like process your own trauma to be able to successfully share your story. Because if not, you're probably going to trauma dump because it feels good because you're getting that validation from people who also are going through what you went through.
Mm.
And that becomes a really dangerous slope. So you really have to have done so like I did EMDR is one of my favorite ways that I kind of helped work through the PTSD and the trauma side of things. So you work with a therapist who's trained in it. And what she did with me was we did probably 6 months of nervous system regulation before we got into like, let's address the trauma and processing just to make sure I was even like stable enough to do it. So if a practitioner has, processed that trauma and they feel like they're able to share it from a grounded space where they're not doing it to, get validation or get attention and things like that, then I feel like it can be really powerful. The only thing I tell Phoenix types is that you have to make sure that your patient or your avatar you're speaking to is the hero still, right? Like, you're just the guide. You're just there to say,
Mm,
"Hey, I can help you, like, go from here to here, problem solution, because here's my credentials," right? That's, like, part of it, my story. But you can't make the whole focus on you. You have to remember, like, this is the person that you're helping and, like, you're just a part of their healing story. So I think there's a lot of mental sort of gymnastics that go along with being a phoenix. And one thing I do work with people on is we if they get their archetype, then I like to kinda have a chat with them and see what kind of maybe 2, 3 of their gifts are in marketing. So maybe they're really good at speaking, or maybe they're really creative and they like designing, or maybe they're just like a easy connector with people. So I just chat with them a little bit and try to pull out, what I think their strengths and everything are. So it's a little bit more customized as to like the route to take, but that's a great question. I think, the phoenix can fall into that trap a little bit more than other types for sure.
yeah, that's a lot of good points, and I see that a lot of the time on social media, like people trauma dumping and just getting that validation of, and then they're almost identifying as that whatever they've
Pa
been through even more, and it's they're
Yeah,
holding on to it and it becomes their identity even more and more and more because they're getting all that validation, and it can be, yeah, hard to break from that once you realize because you've got all these followers, all this money coming in because of that. Yeah,
and
that's
they're
a good
expecting
point.
it from you. Yeah, and one thing that I think is useful is creating sort of like a split for social, like, "Hey, I love that you can share your story, it's really beautiful. Let's make sure that we have" I call them pillars, so a lot of times we'll establish 4 to 5 content pillars for people. One is usually education, right? So if you wanna be known as, like, the mold doctor, that's gonna be your mold content. One can be that like personal story. So you just want to make sure that you have a good mix of type of content that you're putting out there. And I think that also does help. The thing that you just mentioned too is usually the most engaging content is that story. So a
Yeah.
lot of times they're like, "Oh, but I got so many likes on that." But I think with marketing too, it's like you have to balance that human connection piece with also like not to sound so sterile, but like you are there to build leads and to like, get people ideally onto your email list and things like that. So what I do, I call it empathy-led marketing. I've never heard anyone say it before, but it's just like how do you have a successful business? We all have to make money, right? Like doctors have to make money, but how do you do it in a way that's like highly aligned to your morals and values? And so these are a lot of the conversations I have with people. Either they're on one end of the spectrum where they're like, I just want to help people. I don't care about the money. Like, let me keep making these posts. Or sometimes they're on the other end where they're like, I'm not even going to share anything about myself. And I'm just going to like do all this direct sales marketing stuff. And then I'm like, oh, there's such a middle ground that has to happen. And it really is a balance. I'm sure on
Mm.
your side too, with like personal training and everything like that, like, you've gotta kinda weave a lot of different things in.
Yeah, and I'm always struggling going back and forth. I really need to sit down and do those pillars and make sure I have everything dialed in because, yeah, like
Yeah,
sometimes I'll be posting personal stuff and I'm like, I don't want my personal stuff out there. And then I do health and
totally.
fit. Yeah, it's hard.
It
And
is
yeah.
hard, and sometimes you regret posting, and you're like, "Oh, I wish I did," like, "I wish I could, like, take those words back. I was, like, too vulnerable." But
Mm.
I do think bicep pictures are, like, always a yes, right? Like, just, like, if you're in doubt, just a bicep picture.
Yeah, like I've gone away from posting exercise videos because I've realized as a coach, as a podcaster, that information's not really the thing that people are missing. Like how to do a bicep curl and the direction of your wrist and how to grow your bicep is just not that important compared to how to actually understand this life and navigate this crazy
Totally.
world. But unfortunately, the bicep curl video just gets a lot of views.
They work for me every time.
Yeah.
That's
um, is there anything that people shouldn't do when it comes to marketing?
Hmm. Yeah, I think it just depends. One thing that I won't do with clients like I just mentioned, is that really direct sales marketing in this industry specifically. I think it can work for other industries, but if you're talking to a chronically ill population, like most of my practitioners are, most people's nervous systems are already pretty dysregulated, right? You've been sick for a while and you don't have the tools to really be like this grounded, person that's making decisions not out of emotions and desperation. And so I think with the direct sales marketing, that's all those like really in your face urgency tactics. Like, if you don't buy this right
Yeah.
now, like you're going to be sick the rest of your life. And like all the fear mongering, I actually let a client go this year because the company changed ownership and the new person who came in was like, we have these revenue goals to hit and this is how we're going to hit them. And I was like, man, I can't do that in a way that's aligned with my own values, and so I lost quite a bit of money of my monthly income because I was like, I just don't think this is, like, energetically a fit anymore. So that's something in this industry that I'm always like, it's so much better to lead, like you were just saying actually with social media and training, lead with value, lead with education, lead with like some of the mindset things or the things that are going to help people like equip them with the tools to navigate on their own rather than like this one supplement is going to save your life. Like
Mm.
obviously that's not true, right? Like I think educating people and letting them be that hero of their own story, like I said, and like letting them feel empowered to make their own decisions is the most important thing, right? Because if you keep showing up leading with value and being like, hey, here's a free blog, here's a video, here's this, then people are going to trust you. They're going to like you and they're going to eventually buy your stuff. So I'm much more of like a yes, we can talk about supplements. We can do sales emails, maybe one out of every 7 or 8. But the rest of the time, we're going to nurture people. We're going to have these little like love letters to people of like, hey, like I've been where you are. I understand, how it feels. I see you. I hope you feel seen and heard. And here's some things that helped me. Right. And then when you get to like, hey, by the way, I found this product. If this sounds like it's aligned with what's going on with you, here's a link, right? It doesn't have to be this like big in your face thing. So I feel very, like, a lot of conviction about that, and it's gotten me in not in trouble, but it's lost me clients a couple of times before, but, I mean, it's fine, I don't have any there's no, like, ill will or anything toward them, it's like, that's your business, you do what you wanna do with it, I just can't be the one to, like, execute that for you, but,
Yeah.
I do think, like, saying no to things, at least in my experience, it's always brought like, it's opened the door for a lot better alignment, and so, like, right now, I absolutely adore all of my clients. Like, I feel honestly excited to get on calls. I look forward to connecting with them every week, and I feel very, like, appreciated and valued, and a lot of that is culling those, like, fits that aren't great, right? And being okay with saying no and knowing that you have this mindset of abundance that someone else is gonna fill that spot.
And if you have those bad clients, they take so much energy. You can't give the good clients more energy. And I think
That's
that's what
so
like,
true.
but yeah, they might bring in more money and all that. But
Mm.
in the long run, you're going to lose more money because you just can't give the effort and energy to everybody else that actually
So
deserves it.
exhausting. Yeah, and
Mm.
I feel like you lose your creativity too. Like, in the last few months, I've actually let go 2 pretty large clients because of some things like that, and, the amount of creativity I had, like, and joy and just, like, energy that I had to now create my own webinars, my own like, I just created these really cool kits I'm super excited about, and, like, I'm making an app, and so I don't think any of that would have been possible had I stayed in those it's like you're in a toxic relationship. It's hard to leave, right? Because it's like you're wanting to prove yourself, you're like, maybe they're coming at you negatively or they're destroying, like, critiquing everything that you're doing, and, like me, being type A, I'm like, "Well, I'm gonna prove to them that I'm really actually good at my job." So you kinda get in that cycle like you can in a relationship where you're just like, "Okay, I feel trapped in this, but, like, I know it and it's comfortable because I know it." But then you're like, "Well, what if there's someone better out there? What if there's a better fit client? What if there's, like, a better, partner for me out there?" Well, you can't really have the energy and the space to be open to it unless you let that go. So,
Mm.
yeah.
100%. I know we're coming up on time and I've got two little topics that I want to dive into, but we'll go into, I think we'll just continue on this. So you're very good at overcoming and learning and adapting and pushing through. Through your story about being sick, but then also what you're doing now, transitioning into what you're doing now. Like, what you've done is quite amazing, both getting better and the business you've built now. And like every time you sort of talk about something that you've learned, it's just like, yeah, I just tried it and it didn't work, so I kept going, and then I've learned this and I kept going. And it sounds simple and easy, but that is an amazing skill to have. Do you think that's a type A thing, or is it a learnt skill? Because
I don't know.
yeah, like a lot of the, you could say with AI, I hate using it, but taking people's jobs, it's not really taking people's jobs, but a lot of people are scared of losing their income and they're afraid of transitioning or learning new skills or adapting to the change, where you've adapted to the change the whole way through. So
Yeah,
that's sort of why I'm asking the question. Is there
like
a,
where did it come from?
yeah, like, is
Mm.
that something you've learned? Was it
I
from,
think I honestly believe that it actually started as sort of like a trauma response in a way from childhood attachments and like traumas. So I don't know. This is going to be a little bit deep, but I'll say kind of surfacey because we don't have a lot of time. But I would say when I was a kid, I really only got praised for accomplishing things, right? And when I did something and I accomplished and achieved something, like if I got an A or if we got state in volleyball, then I got a lot of attention. And so I think that for me and living my childhood that way, and I also was really, like, uncute as a kid, like, I was not cute, so I had to develop a good personality, and I had to develop this, like, skills that I could, "Hey, like, I got this A," right? Because I didn't have anything else to offer. But, so I think that honestly part of it is probably from childhood of that, just, like, being the person to always wanna do more and do better and be, like, achievement focused. I think a lot of my identity too being sick was it really shook me up and, like, I couldn't produce that anymore, right? I couldn't go out and, like, run a half marathon and have the medal to show for it. I just couldn't, and so I think one of my exes actually taught me this concept of the collapse of identity and sort of this like what happens when you have this whole like identity crisis and you have to almost like tear your own identity down and rebuild it. I feel like I went through that when I was sick. And yes, I think you can lay down and just kind of like let it happen. And I think you also can make that decision to be like, no, like I'm going to keep going. I'm going to figure this out. And I honestly don't know where that comes from. I think maybe part of it is type A. I think part of it's probably childhood stuff. I think part of it's like attachment style. There's so many nuances to it. But I think I don't know, like, I've always been an adaptable person. I feel like I've had a lot of things in my life where I've had to adapt and figure it out, and I think I did wanna give up quite a few times, but I don't really know what kept me going, to be honest with you. I feel like it was just that the visions of, like, I know that I can go back to this beautiful life, and there's, so much beauty in the world and so much that I can still do, and I think, I'm a big believer in vision boards too. I have 2 huge vision boards that I made as soon as I moved back from California to Michigan, and I think that I've accomplished everything but maybe, like, 2 things out of 20. So I feel like just writing them down and putting them somewhere that's prominent and you're looking at them all the time, and a lot of it is, like, what do you want to attract and where do you wanna go? So if you don't have that future thinking brain, I think it's harder for you to go through and adapt because you don't have a goal as to where you're going.
mm,
So I think part of it is that too, and just like doing the limbic system retraining and thinking every day, like, here's where I want to be. And honestly, something I always say is like the life I have now is far beyond what I was even imagining when I was going through that neural retraining. Like I feel like I barely even gave myself like a really cool life in my head. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, like I didn't even tell you this, but I have a social club that I run. It has 20,000 people. And like this is just a side thing I started like a year and a half ago. And so there's already 20,000 people and I run
amazing.
events, like, every week, and
Mm,
so I was like, when I came back here and was sick, I didn't really have any friends. So I was like, how am I going to fix that? Oh, let me just make a social club real quick. And now it's a nonprofit, and like I literally run events every single week. And I think that's just my personality. Like, I'm like, what's wrong? How do I fix it? And then I'll go so far beyond like what a normal person would do. Like, not only am I going to make new friends, I'm going to create a space for 20,000 people to feel like loved and accepted. So I don't know.
Mm.
I just always have been an overachiever, I guess.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, as kids, we're always rewarded for the end result, like the A or the certificate or the trophy, instead of the
Mhm.
process. But it's like your trauma and what you went through with your sickness made you focus on the process more, which
Yeah.
has made you be able to adapt to anything. And it's like more the process rather than the end goals. And you can even hear it when you talk about what you're doing now with your clients. It's not really necessarily, I've got this client and they do this. It's like, all my
Yeah.
clients are awesome and we're trying to do this. So yeah,
Yeah.
love that.
That's really beautiful. I love that insight. That's really
Mm,
nice.
mm.
Yeah.
Well, I
Amazing.
appreciate your time, Allie. I could
Sure.
keep going, but I won't take up much more of your time. Where I'll link everything in the show notes where people can find you, work with you, especially the archetype for the practitioner. I'm probably
Yeah.
going to take that myself.
You should. There's a patient one too. So if
Okay.
people aren't a doctor, clinician, just take the patient one. There's a brand one, but yeah, there's three. So
I'll link
yeah.
them all in the show notes so people can find those. Any final thoughts for everybody listening?
So I would say, yeah, the biggest thing for whether you're healing or whether you're just like looking to achieve more in your life is think about, where's your brain when you wake up? Like, how are you speaking to yourself? I think some of us are really good at encouraging others and being like kind and loving to our friends, but then we turn around on ourselves and we speak to ourselves the way we would never speak to a friend. So I think I have a course that's about magnetism and like high vibe frequency kind of things, and my favorite module I think is on the language of magnetism and just like even internally how your brain works, how you speak to yourself, how you write, how you interact with people. I think that's a really good place to start because that also includes like the visualization, includes a bit of like the affirmations, and I call them bridge affirmations. It's a whole rabbit hole I can go down a different time, but, I don't like regular affirmations, but, uh, yeah, we don't have time for that. But, yeah, I think just, yeah, understanding, like, the way you handle and can feel your emotions and, like, that groundedness of having this, like, calm nervous system is going to impact how you interact with people. It's going to impact opportunities that come to you, relationships, friendships. Like, there are so many things that once we focus on our mindset and our nervous systems, your life is going to absolutely change. I have this thing I call them frequency receipts. So once you start doing some of this work, it's ways that the universe shows you that you're up leveling, right? So it's
Mm.
like, this person in front of me just paid for my meal. That's never happened to me before, but somehow my energy, right, or whatever my nervous system is broadcasting, they were picking up on it and they're doing this beautiful thing for me, or compliments from people, like random texts out of the blue. So I think if I could leave anyone with anything, just start your own collection of frequency receipts, which is like those happy things that happen to you, those unexpected, like little, gifts that happen, and just start focusing on those. And I think the more you screenshot and you save those and you write those down, the more you'll notice that they happen. So it's training that reticular activating system in your brain to look for those things.
On that note, let's finish right there because that ties perfectly into what you said at the start, like finding
Mm,
the positives instead of the negatives.
absolutely.
Allie, appreciate your time.
You too. Thanks for having me.
A big thanks to Lumaflex for sponsoring today's episode. Make sure you check out the link in the description or go to lumaflex.com.au. Use the code TRUEFORM to get 10% off and start enjoying this amazing red light therapy device. You'll not only be supporting your own overall health and wellness, you're supporting this show as well. So I appreciate you doing that. Appreciate your time listening to this episode, and I'll see you in the next one.